Welcome to the EarthWorks podcast, where our team will share the jargon of carbon from many of our turf friends from the past 30 years.
Hi, everybody. This is Joel Simmons, and this is the team EarthWorks. Every once in a while, we get together and chat among ourselves here on the EarthWorks podcast. So today is no exception. We're going to go around the horn of the agronomy team at EarthWorks and talk about what was, what is, what will be, and some insights from the brains at EarthWorks. And I always start in seniority level. So Jack Higgins, our agronomist from the East Coast, who everybody knows and loves from the podcast, some of the top podcasts in the country. Of course, on the top 10 is our friend Chad Kuzawa, but we'll talk about that later. So Jack, how was the East Coast this summer? What was it like? It was pretty ugly out here, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. It was a really
that's right.
droughty. It was a really droughty summer.
Yes, it was shitty.
And it was about 1,000 degrees every day for like 4 weeks. It actually was nearing 100 every day for about like 4 weeks straight in July.
But luckily, we got a lot of rain during all that time.
Oh no, it was as dry as a bone. Really, in like New Jersey, Eastern PA, there were also areas that you would describe it as a wet year. Like there was a lot of the Carolinas had got a lot of rain this summer.
Even the Mid-Atlantic.
Right, exactly. Like Maryland, Virginia, areas that had been dry in like the last 2 years actually saw a good bit of rain. And then up north here, it did even out. Like in the fall, there was actually a good bit of rain. Like if you look at the annual average, we even though we were like 50 days without rain or something,
I think it was like 90, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was an enormous amount of time without rain, but it made it up for it in the fall actually. So I think we're only like an inch deficit in our annual average. But let's see. So enough about the weather. It was more to the year than weather, definitely. It was a good season for East Coast golf. We all got together at the President's Cup in Charlotte at Quail Hollow.
Awesome time. Yes.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
And
found our own private bar there.
Yeah, we had a private. Oh, we kind of did. Yeah. What was that bar? What vendor was it?
It was that
CH something.
There was a Chandon.
Chandon.
Yeah, Chandon.
It was a champagne company.
Yeah.
Hidden in the middle of the course. Everybody walked past it thinking it was a very private place, and it was very open, and there was never anybody there. And we hung out there and met a lot of people. It was a lot of fun.
It was a good time. Yeah.
So enough about drinking.
Yeah. So enough about drinking. Yeah. But no, shout out to Keith Wood, who's also been a guest on the podcast, but he's in the middle of like the biggest year in golf right now. Yeah. As far as hosting events, right? Because he had the President's Cup in September, and then in May it's the Wells Fargo. Is that right, guys?
Mm-hmm.
And then he'll do a regress, I believe, this summer or that next summer, and then have the PGA Championship.
Yeah, he's not busy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had that in September. But then of course in between bounced around and had a very good year with carbon-based fertilizers with EarthWorks at all of our customers. Golf, sports fields. Sports was finally kind of like back in full swing from COVID time. Lawn care is taking huge advantage of getting the biological soil management approach into their programs. I've noticed that in the last year or so, that really kind of jumping in with organic fertilizer in the lawn care and landscape realm, and probably the cost of synthetic fertilizer going up was a big part of that.
That hasn't hurt us at all, really, has it? I mean,
but it's of course it's not the only part of that, because they use these products. EarthWorks, they very commonly, like 822 is a great analysis in lawn care. 343 gets used a lot, and really at all different rates. Small amounts go a long way, and So anyway, I saw a lot of that this year, particularly like we said, a dry, droughty summer, like guys that were lawn care companies that were using some organics in the program really made it went a long way for building some sustainability in the soil, of course, making the irrigation work, you know. So anyway, that was kind of like a quick year in
Well, you've
review.
led the way on this, and I'll bring it up, but you know, one of the things we saw a lot more on is the earthworm suppression with C3. And you've done a couple podcasts and a couple turf talks, and you know, certainly in the Northeast, it's been really powerful.
It has been, and it's not totally foolproof. Like it's not like it's not so cut and dry that you use C3 and you'll never see worm casts again. But most people using C3, not everybody, most people attest to a dramatic reduction in the amount of casts that they see in areas where they generally are annihilated by casts. So,
and it's been university tested.
It has it, yeah. Well, kind of.
Oh, well, no, it has. It's just
it has. It has. And it was, you know, they didn't see everything, but of course it was on like it was in turf plots that it
10 by 10 plot is hard compared to fairways, you know, across a property when you're using
30 acres of fairways. Exactly.
You know, it's interesting. We had a couple of people reach out on Twitter or some social media and say they didn't see anything. When I actually investigated, they weren't dealing with the traditional earthworm. They were dealing with a different variety of worms, and yeah, they didn't see it. And somebody was talking earlier today about red wigglers, which is really a compost worm, but the traditional earthworm, and I don't know the species, somebody here probably does, but we've seen consistently effective of just not coming up and dropping off. They're not dying. I was out in California last week, and they were talking about seed applications, and they would apply that and basically have to come back with, you know, snow shovels full of dead worms. This isn't doing any of that. It's just keeping them from coming up. And like you said, Jack, it's not foolproof, but it's, you know, it's pretty strong, and it makes a big difference in a lot of properties. And this is coming from, you know, hundreds of guys that we work with every year. So something's working. Anecdotal, I know it's anecdotal.
Yeah, but well, of course, the other great thing about it is that it's super cost effective, super easy to use, tank mixes with everything, and is a low use rate, and it does a whole bunch of other work besides suppress worm casts.
Yeah, right.
You know,
it's
like
just a value add, really. Yeah.
Hence, it's the #1 popular product here at EarthWorks, so it's very effective, and it can be tank mix anywhere. Kirk, what's Texas been like this summer, and how was it?
Texas was brutal. It was a brutal summer, very similar to 2011, which I can remember that summer very vividly, growing bent grass in Texas with no rain and 70 days over 100 degrees. So
you need rain
similar.
to grow bent grass? I didn't know that.
We have irrigation, but that particular summer our irrigation source ran out. Yeah, so I was a night waterman. I would go up and turn on the city water to fill up the irrigation pond every night.
So we need to congratulate Kirk. He graduated again this year with an MBA from Purdue, and not Purdue.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you tell the story.
Yeah. No, it was a incredible year. A lot of milestones achieved. First and foremost, had a baby. So
congratulations.
Introduced another.
Your wife must be very proud of you.
Baby into the world. Yeah, #3, got a boy.
It's hit every scientific journal.
That's right.
Exactly. Congratulations.
Graduated from Purdue with an MS in agriculture economics in August, and just finished up my MBA from Indiana University 3 weeks ago. So
you haven't been working for EarthWorks for a year now. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. So I've been extremely busy. In there, I also had a 2-week international residency to Brazil, which was incredible.
That is incredible.
Got to see the agribusiness of Brazil. So, which in itself is pretty incredible. So it was a extremely busy year. Yeah, it was exciting.
It's a great year. Very good year. Mr. Hicks, 25-year superintendent.
Yeah.
Still seeing golf courses on a regular basis out west.
5 years in with EarthWorks.
Based at a Coeur d'Alene. And now
Yeah.
getting to help young guys find the success that you had all those years. How's it going?
Yeah.
So what's the temperature right now? What did you say this morning? The temperature right now or tonight's going to be?
We will not see 32 degrees Fahrenheit until Sunday, it looks like.
Wow.
And we're supposed to be 10 below by Wednesday evening. So this is pretty unusual for a year. It's a lot more, it's a lot milder in Coeur d'Alene than people might expect. But every once in a while we get these cold snaps that are pretty brutal. Winter came early here. I'm a little worried about guys that are dealing with less than full treatments of snow mold protection.
Yeah.
Prior to the first snowfall, that's going to be a little dicey in the spring. Drought in the Southwest obviously is in the forefront of everybody's mind. I mean, we're now fighting over water that no longer exists, and it's getting to a real critical mass, I think, down there. So, anything we can do in that regard to try to help them use water more efficiently is something that I'm really focused on. But
yeah, well, this is a big conversation out your way. You just came back from
dark.
the water summit in Northern California.
Yeah.
Right?
That was probably one of the best conferences I've been to, and very well put together. And the cool thing about that is they pulled in legislators, they pulled in folks from different water districts, both in Southern Cal and Northern Cal, and it was a real collaborative meeting. And I thought that's it was a great model for how we move forward, because we can all sit as turf managers in a room and talk about things. And farmers can sit in a room and talk about agriculture, but until you bring in all of those decision makers, it's going to be real hard to make any inroads.
Yeah, I was out there last week, and a lot of people still talking about that meeting. And one of the things that came out of it is some of the legislators, some of the water district people, especially southern side of that area, was they were really well spoken and well organized and well prepared for that meeting, whereas some of the other water districts up north, they were lost, which was kind of interesting to see the dichotomy of the people that are managing all this.
I think the true value, though, came in where both of those groups really recognized that turf managers in general, and there were a lot of sports turf managers in the room as well, that turf managers in general are way ahead of where they may have envisioned us being as far as conservation efforts and things like that. So I thought it was a terribly productive,
wonderfully productive
meeting, and really a lot more of that has to happen, because like I said earlier, there's a lot of state agencies that are arguing about water that just doesn't exist. So what's the point?
Yeah, why you're fighting over something that's not even there?
Yeah, we've got to figure this out. But
and our friend Justin Mandan spoke at that, right?
Yeah, he did a great job.
Justin
what a model! What a model for a club or for an entity that's to just basically create a source like they did is pretty cool.
Justin is the superintendent at Pasatiempo, one of my favorite golf courses in the world, and they're going to be doing a lot of remodeling over there pretty soon too. So I had a chance to chat with him about that recently. So very cool.
He's also been a podcast guest.
He's also been on the podcast, and I think we'll have him on again maybe this year after some of the work that he's been doing. But he's really leading the way in water and some of the work they did. And we talked a lot about that on that podcast. And if somebody hasn't heard that particular podcast, look up the archives with Justin Mandan. It's a phenomenal conversation, because he's really led the way from a superintendent standpoint and figuring out how to bring water in effectively, use it. They treat it on site. He's really learned. He said he's learned so much in the last couple of years. He could be one of these water experts now because of all the work he's done on that property. And it's a very sensitive property right in Santa Cruz, California. So it's a fascinating conversation, and he was a great guest. And I hope sometime this year we'll get him back.
And he really puts it into perspective too. Especially for those of you on the East Coast, where maybe you go through drought situations, but rain is certainly more reliable.
Yeah.
That club invested $9 million in a water a water treatment facility, it meant that much. But the crazier statistic is the ROI on it was under 5 years.
Yes, it was ridiculous.
Oh
So when you
God.
think about, first you go, oh, $9 million, there's no way we can afford that. But guess what? It's paid for.
Yeah.
5 years.
And the rest of it's all great.
Yeah, there's
So-
not an investment that, well, assuming obviously the money's there, but that kind of an investment return is just, you can say no to that, especially when it comes to water, because, you guys out West are going to be spending, probably twice what you're spending now for water. And it's already at $1 million in the budget line. Those of us out East, we can't even fathom what that sounds like.
Right. Right.
Although it's, they have a better idea after this year.
And it's changing, and it's going to creep this way. There's no question about that. Mr. Kuzawa, Chad Kuzawa, our friend from Grand Rapids, Michigan, our newest member of the agronomy team, who has taken me to Louisville, Kentucky more than once this year and polluted my liver with bourbon.
We had some last night.
Yes, we did at your expense, or at your.
Let's not fool the listeners. Your location is not important for your consumption of bourbon.
It's available anywhere.
Not everything.
We've put some focus on growing with some new partners, and it's gone pretty well through kind of that hole in the country in the middle there with Louisville, like Joel said, and it's gone well, and it's been nice to have that as the model shifts a little bit from direct to the end user, which we're still doing, obviously. But no, much like everybody said, we all cover a lot of areas, so every weather pattern you can imagine, we certainly all saw it. Thankfully, living in Michigan, we're surrounded by fresh water, so we're going to be okay on that front for a little bit longer.
Yeah, you might be protected, but eventually somebody will figure out a way to make money off of even that,
No, for sure.
Selling you straws to the lake.
Overall, I think it was a good year, growing with some new partnerships.
We just had on the podcast Mr. John Ballard from a little club called Valhalla, that everybody's heard of. Phenomenal property, and you and I got to ride around on that a couple of times, and it is spectacular. I mean, it really is.
Yeah.
A phenomenal property, and he will be PGA Championship next, not in 23, but 24, and then Keith Wood gets it on 25. So yeah, they're going to be two of the busiest guys, Keith and John Ballard, in the next couple of years, because I know at Valhalla they're going to be doing some more work and working on some of the buildings, and I think he's getting a new shop, and so there'll be a lot of stuff going on there. So it's pretty cool, but. So what does anybody think? And I'm going to open it up now. Where are we? So golf has been up across the country, right? Does everybody agree with that? I mean, there really hasn't been a downturn yet, has there?
No way. No.
Rounds are up.
So we're going to be able to maintain this? I mean, Keith, you've asked this question. Kevin, you've asked this question a couple of times, and you got some interesting responses on some of your podcasts. But what's the future? What's the silver ball look like?
It's the question I ask every one of my guests, and the answer is usually very, very abrupt, and typically no. It's disappointing for me because I'm so vested in the game and the industry. Yeah. I mean, I started as a caddy, and it seems like the same cycle is repeating. Yeah, we're riding a wave right now, and things are great, but we look at and I'm preaching to the choir here, but we look at the investments that are being made with the money that's being raked in at some of these places. And we had an opportunity to identify the most valuable asset on every property in the United States, and that's the golf course itself, because it was the only thing available in a lot of parts of the country. And yet, as soon as things open up, we're reinvesting in the restaurant, we're reinvesting in fitness centers, instead of looking at how do we make our most important asset better?
And not just the physical asset, but also the human capital side of it as well. Correct. I think that's where those investments, I'd like to see some opportunities there to make this a career.
It's a great point, Kirk.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And that's a struggle because we're everybody. There's not a golf course that any of us have talked to in 2 years, 3 years that haven't been dying to find people.
Well, unfortunately, though, the reality is we all know business owners that live different levels too. Where are the people in general?
Yeah.
People say that in every small business, I can't find any help. So it isn't just golf either.
And it's not just small business. I mean, look at the advertisement that the U.S. Postal Service runs all the time. Yeah, it's an interesting time. I think the most successful operations I've seen, Kirk, are the ones that are identifying employees that have been with them and saying, hey, how about we fund your turf school education? Give us a couple years. That keeps that pipeline moving, but at the same time, you've got a known commodity in an employee that you've had versus hiring somebody cold off the street is always a risk. I mean, it may turn out fine, but at least who that person is.
I talked with Brian Nuss at Presidio in California, and they realized his property, of course, is owned by a trust, and it's a very unique, environmentally sensitive property. But they realized that his golf course brought in a ton of money during COVID. I mean, they're up to 80,000 rounds. And they're starting to identify the fact that, this business is the golf course and everything around it is peripheral. And they're starting to give him a little bit more leeway and a little bit more funding. And he's been able to do some pretty cool things. He's been working with us for a number of years, trying to find ways to reduce inputs, and he's getting there. And, he's just done a wonderful job. But it was fascinating hearing him talk about this group of saying, you know what? You really are the asset, the golf course. They're coming here for the golf course. So why are we messing around with all these other goofy little things? So maybe there is a trend going on.
Yeah, and if there was a message, I think to superintendents and assistants, it's make sure people are aware of that. It should be pretty easy to track those metrics over the last few years and where the revenue was and wasn't.
Yeah.
Whether it's a private club looking at memberships and the increase, or the waiting lists that are out there now versus, like you said, 3 years ago, there were nobody on the waiting list, and now they've got a list. There's a reason for that.
Yeah, I mean, and again, finding people is going to be the challenge of the next. Finding water and finding people. I'm not sure which order is more important. It's interesting. We did a number of conversations with some of the women in golf, and that's a resource that's been barely tapped, and it's a wonderful resource. And some of these folks that are coming in from from all over the country are just really doing great. And things like what Troy Flanagan did at the Open a year or so ago, the Women's Open, bringing all the women into that thing was phenomenal. I had a chance to talk with Troy about it, and you can just see how proud he was. And he was I talked to him on Friday night about it at dinner, and he was just so amazed at how how excited the whole group was. And so there's a lot of things happening in our industry that's for the good, and we hope that those kind of trends can continue. Any other major trends?
Well, just to stay with that for a minute, though, Joel, you and I were fortunate enough to go to the ITOTA fall meeting in Key West, which is the Independent Turf and Ornamental Distributors Association, and we had a really good group. Some superintendents, some vendors, some distributors, talking about supply chain issues and things of that nature. And I think we've been pretty fortunate at EarthWorks, but that's another kind of wrench in the whole thing is even the clubs that are balanced and creative and good enough to keep the trend moving in the right direction to capitalize on the golf. There's this little supply chain issue or X, Y, or Z sitting right in front of them. And I mean, it was interesting to hear, not to name, who it was, but, somebody at a very large accomplished club, and they can't get anything either. I mean, it's pretty interesting to hear that struggle.
Yeah, they finally got money for capital investment, and there's no capital but to be bought.
There's can't buy any, got to fight for it. Yeah. It's gone up through the roof. Yeah, we're still fighting with bags and caps, and of course the cost of fuel is still outrageous for some reason.
The driver shortage, and we would get through one hurdle, and here comes the next thing of pallet shortage and bags and caps, and like you said, everything. We would get through one thing, and our supply of the material would be good, and then we'd run across something else.
And we're domestic, so our sourcing is all domestic and kind of made in house, being that it's coming from 1.4 million dozen egg production a year. Chicken poop. So it's that part is, and everybody says, well, why is are the chickens pooping less or something? And it's has nothing to do with that. It's everything around it. the fuel to process it, and the manpower and the labor and the trucking and
labor,
the
everything,
packaging.
all the costs have risen, labor costs, production costs, fuel costs. The demand has dramatically increased.
Yeah, it's been pretty
for
amazing how
domestic
that is.
organic based fertilizers. I mean, that's all of those are associated.
I mean, we've had the 2 best years that we've ever had in my 35 years in the last 2. And a lot of it is because of the nature of the industry and the price of synthetic fertilizers, and people starting to realize that, now that we're kind of, price is not an issue, and they start playing with it, we tend to have great loyalty once somebody understands the value of, biological soil management. So it's been an interesting year from that standpoint.
Don't sell yourself short. The stuff works. You put it down,
I'm not. Yeah, no,
it
you're
does
right.
what it's supposed to do.
It's an incredible fertilizer.
Yeah.
I mean, and all of the value add that comes along with it. It's
So this year, after 30 some years of working this, we launched EarthWorks for Home small packages, and kind of parlaying our many years experience on the golf courses and best sports complexes in the world to bring small packages to homeowners, and golf course superintendents can participate that in by being an affiliate with us. So if you have any interest in getting people out of your shop that want to steal your 545, we have a way to get your members product without having to steal a bag out of your shop. So if anybody's interested, Jack and I have been working on that, and you can see Jack and me on video clips in there.
That's
quite entertaining. Jack
That's
likes to photosynthesize a lot, and it's a wonderful
yeah, I mean,
process.
because like you're saying, because this stuff works and people are interested, so we can talk about it. And I do believe that in the time that I've been doing this, there is more interest in organic fertilizer than there has been.
I think there's actually
the outlook is incredible. I'm not just obviously I'm a part of this team and been a part of it for a while, but I think objectively the industry outlook of what we're doing is
well, when you see companies like the Andersons coming out with everything carbon based, and they're using the verbiage that we've been using for 30 years, it starts to justify that we've worked our tails off for so long. And I think it's not just about organic. They're seeing, like Jack says, it works.
Sure.
And what it does, and we've all talked about this concept of the MLSN, minimalized fertilizers, and we all strongly believe in using less, just the right less, as Kevin says. And I think that's what carbon-based is all about, is that we can reduce inputs and effectively, but you can't really do that effectively by just taking away half your lunch. We're putting in food that's sustainable in the ground. So I think this conversation is going to continue to grow, and more people are discovering that this isn't hocus pocus and a bunch of stuff. It really works, and it gives them longevity. So it's kind of neat watching this whole transition in an industry, and how we can become overnight success after 35 years.
But staying with even just that organic thought, the lawn care industry has has kind of pushed that movement. And Kirk, all of us, young kids, you can understand why there's some drive there.
There's a demand from the customer base.
Exactly. Yeah. And then that filters on up into cities and the way they manage their parks and things of that nature. So
right.
You certainly see the trends happen.
Yeah, parks are working pretty effectively. Schools, certainly. I think the whole EarthWorks for Home concept is going to be very viable. Jack mentioned this, but the lawn care industry is starting to realize they can actually put more money in their pocket by putting in some carbon at least once or twice in their program, so that they can use less fertilizer. And again, it comes back to this concept of using less. I mean, every day I get a call from somebody that, it's trying to push under a pound of N just because they think they can. And they do. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure I always recommend it, but it's the game, and it works. And, it's, we're all heading, or at least some of us are heading out to Green Pond Country Club. We interviewed Roger from Green Pond, Zellner, a couple of weeks ago, and he was the first place we ever put this on. And I told the story of, I thought Roger had just basically blown us off. And we told him what we'd been doing, 545, some Calvantage. And he called me back 6 months later. I thought it was dead in the water. And he said, "Hey, can you come back and tell me again what you guys were doing here?" Because he was, fertilizing by eyeball, and he had been so busy, he never got to fertilizing. He realized, wait a second, I haven't fertilized since I've been here. Mm-hmm. And the place is still strong, green, and recovering. So it's not a new story. It's an old story, but it's growing and growing.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
So let's talk about new things. One of the things that we're going to be talking a lot about is eco-adaptive chemistry. And I think these liquids that our chemist, Lawrence Mayhew, is working with us on is fascinating. He's taking the highs and lows out of the formulas and the imbalances. A good example is a lot of products are really high in nitrates, high in sulfurs, and he's bringing that balance down so that they don't interfere with each other and allow for better uptake. And we've certainly seen that in this new product, K-Vantage. And just this, we get the luxury of spending Monday mornings with him for an hour or so. And the running joke is,
Most of it goes over our heads.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And we have to record it because if you're not going to remember half of what Lawrence goes through. But this whole, and we've gone through the process, and now we've seen K-Vantage in the field. And Jack, you've probably seen it more than anybody, but it's getting some pretty good legs. I mean, you're hearing it.
Yeah, definitely. It kind of goes along the lines of the make efficient use of the water that you have. K-Vantage was, yes, developed with the eco-adaptive chemistry in mind, and really with the goal of building a potassium product that was going to help the plant utilize the moisture in the root zone most effectively. And yeah, that's kind of the reports that we get back on a couple guys that have tried it. It kind of soft opening with K-Vantage, and the couple guys that have tried it, Lakers, said, really, absolutely, in terms of going around and chasing wilt, I get much further out of the day before that we have to send out the guys with hoses to make sure that our plants aren't lighting up. I think, so in terms of getting that potassium in the plant to maintain turgid pressure and use the moisture that's in the ground most efficiently, I think it's hitting that goal.
And I'm not sure we were looking at it that way when we started this, but I think what's happening is it's keeping sodium from flushing into the cell, so it's not dehydrating and forcing the plant to draw more water out of the soil.
Sure.
So we've learned a lot.
And a big part of that is the potassium sources, right? That's
right.
Kind of
Yeah. So Jack, give us an elevator speech of what eco-adaptive chemistry is. We've been tossing that term around, but
that's right. Okay, so I think the one sentence answer is that it is a way of delivering nutrients, delivering chemistry to the plant and to the whole biological system in a manner that does not disrupt the balance, and like kind of the biological uptake, that what
kind of working in concert with our soil system rather than
that's right. Like, what we're trying to do with biological soil management, encourage that biological system to help nutrient uptake. You don't want to disrupt it, but the system by throwing so much of one item down that kind of breaks that balance.
And it prevents it from uptake.
Yeah. So that was the approach with eco-adaptive chemistry. And and it's really Lawrence's thing he brought to us. And he's also, like you mentioned, Joel, it's not just K-Vantage. It
will be everything soon.
Right.
Yeah, and we've already started retooling some of that for the formulations on some of these products.
K-Vantage, you've been working with our new Protein Plus Zero Phos formula and had great response with it. I mean, getting great legs.
Very exciting.
And again, by balancing out some of that nitrogen in that product, it allowed the plant to take it up better and hold it longer.
Yeah, and let's say it's we're not really changing the amount of nitrogen there. It's still a 14% nitrogen product, but there's better balance. That product always had a lot of trace nutrients, and trace nutrients bring a lot of color to the plant. What we saw with trialing this 1405 with more of an eco-adaptive approach was just the amount of color that you sustained with this product for a long time. On where they tried this at Central Park they were on a 3-week spray cycle. So it was only 5 ounces of Protein Plus on a 3-week cycle with 5 ounces of BioVantage. It was a really cool program.
And tons of activity, right?
Tons of
Fresh.
Oh yeah, thousands, yeah,
Manhattan's
tens of
worth
thousands of
activity.
people walking all over it.
Yeah, so that was really exciting.
But it also kind of takes the conversation about fertilizer analysis and makes it a kind of a secondary conversation, doesn't it? Because it's we're able to utilize more with less.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me
The right
explain this
less.
really thoroughly. It's about stoichiometry.
Please tell us
get
more
it.
about that, Jack. It's been on the top of my mind for so long now.
That's the Lawrence thing. I mean, so he does tell us about stoichiometry, like and stoichiometry is really that part of chemistry where everything balances out, where you're trying to achieve some balance so the chemistry works. And that's what he's trying to do with that's what he's doing with these eco-adaptive formulas. Isn't kick under development in the eco-adaptive?
CalVantage, eventually
Cal.
everything will be, but right now we got eco-adaptive, KVantage, Protein Plus, CalVantage, and Kick.
Wonderful.
So it's exciting. I mean, it really is. It's we sit here and listen to Lawrence go on and just get excited about this. The other thing, and Jack, you can talk about this too because it's one of your babies, is the whole rhizophagy cycle that Dr. White is. Dr. White is.
Well, I'll talk about it for a hot minute, but Kevin's. Oh no, you weren't at Acres this year.
Lawrence went and saw him.
Dr. White spoke at the Sacramento one.
So
as well.
Dr. White is a professor at Rutgers University, and he's come up with this whole model by looking at the way mycorrhizae and bacteria and fungi work within the plant under a simple microscope. He was able to see the movement, and Lawrence saw him speak at Acres this year. Acres USA is a sustainable ag conference that was held in Cincinnati last week, actually, first week in December maybe. And we're hoping, and if you're listening, Dr. White, and I'm sure you're not, we would love to have you on our podcast. But Jack's going to reach out to you. So if you hear this guy call you, please answer and come join us, because it's a fascinating study. And Jack, you probably know it as well or better than any of us. So kind of give everybody an idea as to what the heck this is all about.
Okay, so the rhizophagy cycle is we all know that like encouraging soil microbes really helps with nutrient uptake. Okay, like so that's like the simple idea, and then this discovery is more of an answer as to why and how does that work. So really what he was able to observe, like Joel said, just under a microscope, is that the plant is really taking in and eating it, because rhizophagy means root eat. The plant is
wasn't that a 2-minute turf talk once?
Yeah, that was a 2-minute turf talk. So, but the plant is engulfing microbes and extracting the nutrient out of the microbe within the plant cell and within the roots, and then those microbes are exiting the plant as well. And in the exiting of the plant, they're really exiting through new root hairs. So the exiting process it kind of starts a new root system or new root hairs growing. So it's part of the new growth of roots as well. And then, but the plant is essentially cultivating. The plant is farming the same way we're farming the plant. The plant is farming microbes, microbial colonies around its root system in order to actually take in these root systems or take in these soil microbes, break them down, not totally kill them, but extract nutrient out of them. Same way we take manure out of the ladies, out of the hens.
Out of the ladies.
Yeah, be careful now.
I mean the egg-laying hens.
Yes.
I
Hope you mean that. Yes,
Yeah.
that's exactly what we hope.
But it was still good.
It's fascinating. I mean, the whole science of it is fascinating. I think we're going to learn more, but it really just shows the symbiotic relationship that microbes have with plants and why it's so important that we maintain biological soil management. And his work has really, kind of proven biological soil management as a necessity in any living environment. And in ours, typically with these cover crops of turf that get so much physical abuse, it really is showing how important, what we've been doing all these years is. And by just simply feeding that soil a little bit and letting this process happen, I mean, who would have thunk, I mean, we should all buy microscopes and start looking at this stuff.
Oh my gosh.
It's pretty
Just
fascinating.
let nature go to work. Just kind of put it on the right path and let nature go to work.
Yeah. All right, we're going to wrap up here, and I'll ask we'll do a last go around, but I'm going to start with Kevin. When's the next series of Follies? That was fascinating, and I know there are some stories that you wanted to tell in different fashions, and we had to be careful, but there's some.
I got censored by my own company. I can't believe it.
Well, we got to be, we
I
gotta
know,
be careful about certain things.
We'll do. I've still got some contributions coming in, so I'll do another one.
Any quick share you want to give us? A little tease of a good story that you heard recently that you can talk about on the air?
No, I've got one that I completely forgot about my own story, but it has to do with a mixed tank and a squirrel.
Those are always my favorite stories. Mixed tank, squirrels.
Yeah,
Was he in the tank or was he just one? He was.
Yeah, he was in the tank.
He didn't start in the tank.
It was truly a folly, and I've never seen a squirrel the size of a cat. But that's I'm not going any further than that.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Chad, you didn't mention, but you've got two of the most adorable kids in the world and one brand new one about the same time of Kirk's kid. And so congratulations. And
thank you.
You're going to have a phenomenal Christmas this year with two little kids running around, aren't you?
I don't know about that.
Put together all those little type stuff yet? Are you a Christmas?
No, I mean it's 2 under
guy?
2, so there's still a lot of things we're not doing yet.
Okay.
Yeah, but their eyes are going to be so big, it's going to be great.
There will be some of that, no doubt.
Yep.
Yeah. Jack, what's Christmas look like at your house? It's got to be fun.
Oh, it's a good time. Yeah, my kids are a blast. Yeah, we'll have fun. I don't know. The 3 of them will run around, open presents, have a good time.
And then you guys will come down and realize you didn't wait for us.
No.
Just like we did as kids. So tonight's the infamous EarthWorks Christmas party, and Jack will be playing his new mandolin.
Oh yeah,
making a whole new sound of music at the party. Just so we could get rid of a couple guitar players, we got Jack a mandolin, so that there wasn't 23 guitar players, and now I'm clearly the weak link in this party.
Not at all.
But since
we sound good. I'm psyched for it.
Yeah, it'll be fun. We'll probably put a video 2 or 3 out when we get the whole thing pulled together. But it's a company role.
I think Kevin said he was going to put it on Facebook Live. He wanted.
Yep.
There you go.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
That should be good. Yeah, wait till we have a couple drinks in us, and then we start to sound good, at least in our head. So there you have it. Kirk, last word.
Oh man,
on the spot. You hate that.
Yeah, on the spot. No, I'm thankful for an incredible year, an awesome team. We have a great support staff inside the office. Lisa Kiefer, Melissa Bodine, which make everything move for us. So
Absolutely.
Very grateful for them. Excited to spend few weeks with my family. It's a wonderful time. Kids love Christmas, and looking forward to an exciting 2023.
I think we also want to say thank you to everybody at Logan Labs. Susan Shannon and her team keep us all together and keep us looking at numbers and keeping them clean. So we got to thank Susan and everybody at Logan Labs who has been really just amazingly supportive and hands down the best soil testing laboratory in the country. And I'm certainly not biased.
And of course, all of our distributor partners and our customers and clients.
Yeah,
it's nowhere without them.
It's a wonderful, this is a wonderful team, and the partners that we have all around us are incredible. And so I'm forever grateful for all of our partnerships.
Yeah. You know, and Jack started by saying this, but it was so much fun getting together at the President's Cup, the 5 of us, because we hadn't seen each other as a team since COVID, really. And, just to be able to walk the golf course and have fun and drink some beers and wait for Chad in the bathroom and, all the fun things that we all the good things of that week it was just a blast hanging out in Charlotte and, all those kind of things. So I'm going to say good night and good bless and Merry Christmas and happy holidays and whatever else it is. We will be back next week. I think we're going to be doing a best of podcast next week. And then, Chad's going to pick up the ball in the beginning of next year with a new podcast. So thank you guys. Thank everybody who's listening. Thank the whole team. And please have a wonderful, safe, and sound holiday, and we will see everybody at the GIS, at the STMA, and on your property sometime next year. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Happy holidays. Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.